Oh boy,
And
we had so much to learn from that point. If you ever say to yourself, you've made it, you're wrong.
you did make it.
You did.
Yeah.
Welcome to the first inaugural episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. We're very excited to be here today. It is my first-ish time podcasting, but I'm here with my co-host and business partner, Nick, who is a very experienced podcaster. And
You could say that.
yeah, we just wanted to talk crap about the wedding industry, share
Pretty
kind of like
much.
some of our insights. We're wedding videographers, just to give a little bit of background. And today's episode, we're going to be kind of like diving deep into our stories, how we got into weddings, and I guess what brought us to where we are today. And then I guess we'll talk a little bit about what we expect this podcast to be, what you guys can look forward to, and all that fun stuff. But first things first, want to dive into kind of our stories, also kind of how we met. But want to go first into Nick, your story, how you got started with videography in general and how that kind of like translated into weddings. So yeah, take it away. Tell us about your first time and your first experience. I guess go all the way back to when you first picked up a camera. How did that all start?
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is like deja vu because the amount of times I've told this story on camera specifically is a lot.
We
But
both know these
for-
stories like so well. Like we're just gonna be like repeating all these things to each other. But you guys don't know any of this.
For the
so
few
this-
people, the few people that haven't heard it before. Yeah. So yeah, I got my first camera as a graduation present in high school. And I got it because some of my friends, like my junior, senior year, had a little super small basic Canon DSLR camera. We'd like go to Boston, just take photos for fun. Thought it was cool. So I was like, yeah, for graduation, I would love one. So throughout the whole summer after high school, going into college, I basically just used that camera all the time. Grew out of it really quickly in a matter of like 4 or 5 months.
Which camera was
I
it?
chose it was the Canon T6. Not even the T6i, just the straight T6.
If you are
super
not
basic.
a creative person or somebody who has a camera, that is like the starter camera for like pretty much everybody. I didn't start on that, but yeah, it is
Some version
I think
of the
everybody
Canon
does.
Rebel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Canon Rebel series is the intro camera, basically. Don't recommend it now. Your phone is better, 100%. But anyway, I chose my college roommate because he was a photographer and he was better than me. He was like an actual hobbyist photographer. I was just a complete amateur. So I chose him. We roomed together. He taught me a lot of things. And that fall, he was planning a trip to go to Acadia National Park up in Maine. And he asked me if I wanted to go. I said yes. So we spent like 2 or 3 days just up there doing nothing except take photos. And pretty much on that trip is when I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I was initially going to college for wildlife conservation biology because I was a huge fan of Steve Irwin, for those of you who don't know, RIP. But I pretty much came back from that trip and was like, yep, gonna switched everything to like film media. I saw a YouTube video by a guy named Sam Colder. If you're in the industry, I'm sure you know who that is.
Also a classic like starter inspiration person for anybody who's not
For
a
sure.
creative. Like I feel like
Back
so
in, like,
many people
2016.
nowadays like have him as inspiration. Like, and he inspired me too. But we'll get into that in a sec. Continue.
Yeah. So I saw his video. It was called My Year 2016. He used to like travel the world, do a lot of like cool transitions with his edits. And I was like, yep, I want to make that. So I self-taught myself video basically because my roommate only knew photography. So I was like, all right, I have kind of a handle on photography now. Let me try and learn video. So in my freshman year little dorm room, I would be on my little 13-inch MacBook Pro watching YouTube videos pretty much every single day, just tutorials, how to do things. a guy named Peter McKinnon, if you don't know him, taught me a lot as well.
Another classic.
But I pretty much, grew that and kind of learned video through YouTube. I eventually switched my major, like I said, fully to film media and actually took some classes about film. I can honestly say I learned more on YouTube than I did in any of those classes. But that's a different story. So basically, that kind of leads where Sam and I met in college. So I was a senior at the University of Rhode Island, and I had an off-campus job because I was just trying to make money. And I worked at this grocery store, and Sam was in high school at the time, also worked at the grocery store. And
Shout out
I was
Belmont
literally
Market.
just there to I was just there to make money. I was not there to make friends, okay? So I just walked in, did my job, and left. So I saw Sam every once in a while when we'd like have a similar timed shift, but never said a single word to him. I don't even think I said hi.
Dude,
not to,
I
try
thought
to be
you
rude.
hated me.
We just
I
didn't
thought you
cross
hated me.
paths.
Like, there's no
So-
way this kid likes me.
We just never had the chance to actually cross paths enough for me to actually engage in a true conversation until my literal last day. I was leaving, saying bye to like my mini boss there. And I forget what I had, but I actually had something. I like actually had to go because I was going to be late for whatever it was. So I was kind of rushing. And then at that moment, they were like, "Oh, have you talked to Sam? He's going to URI next year and he's like into film stuff too." And I was pretty much like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I got to go. Bye." Pretty much.
Yeah.
I left, and then pretty much nothing happened. And then fast forward like a couple months, we found each other on Instagram, liked each other's stuff. And like I said, I was inspired by Sam Colder's My Year video. So I wanted to make one this summer. And I pretty much asked you to help like film it because I wanted to do it in Rhode Island. And that was pretty much the first time we met in person, first time we hung out, and the first time we like shot together. And it was like a 2 or 3 day little project.
Which is quite the
Like a
introduction to like
It was a
never
massive
talking before.
thing to
It's
doing
just like,
at the
hey,
very
let's spend
beginning.
3 days together.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty much how we met. And then fast forward a little bit further, we started a production company together called SeaMount Media, which is where this SeaMount Weddings kind of branched off from. And then, well, I'll kind of put a pin in that because I'll let you kind of talk until we get to this point, and then we can continue this.
For sure. Yeah. Cause that's there's a whole other story with how that develops and kind of like to where we are now. But it's also very cool and insightful. And I think a lot of people will like learn things from it. Yeah, I guess I'll go back to like my beginnings and a little bit of my perspective on when we first met, which is all information you already know, but for the new folks out there who don't know us, this is fun. Yeah, so my first experience with a camera was not the Canon Rebel, surprisingly. It was a GoPro Hero, the original GoPro Hero. I forget how old I was. I want to say I was like early years of middle school. And I think a couple of my friends had GoPros, so I was like just jealous of them. And I asked for it for Christmas one year, and I got it. So I was like super stoked to just basically have a new toy to play with. The first things that I filmed were like me and my brother snowboarding in our backyard. We had this like little tiny hill, and like I never like snowboarded officially on a mountain. I just had this like crappy little plastic snowboard, but I thought I was so cool filming these videos of us snowboarding in our backyard. We even like made a grind rail out of like wood and PVC pipe. It was we thought we were so cool, but looking back on it, I'm like, what were we doing? But we were just having fun. And I never like really edited anything with that snowboard stuff. I kind of just gathered the clips and like watched them later on my computer. I'm like, oh, look at these cool tricks, whatever. After that, I didn't do too much with my camera. With the GoPro, I would film some videos of me surfing in the summer. I would take it with me anytime I would just go out and do something. So I was like always kind of using it on the side, but wasn't really kind of like a main, I guess, hobby of mine for a while. It was always like a little side hobby. A few years later, I was deep into just watching YouTube, specifically the soccer side of YouTube. So I was watching all these guys doing like challenge videos, freestyle videos, free kicks, unboxings, things like that. And I was like so deep into it. I was kind of like, I feel like I could do something like this. Because I was an avid soccer player growing up. So I'm like, I could share some of my skills with the world if I wanted to. So me and my neighbor actually started this soccer YouTube channel. It was called JS Soccer. It's still public if anybody wants to go back and look at some of those old cringy videos. But yeah, some of the early ones were, as anybody's early videos are, some of the early ones were rough. We were only really filming on iPhones to start because that was the only thing we really knew how to do. I had basically like put my GoPro back in the box at this point, didn't use it for anything. So I was shooting and editing everything on my iPhone. And as we kind of did that for a couple years, I wanted to start kind of like upping the production quality because I was inspired by these other guys I was seeing, and a lot of them were using like higher end cameras, making some, sexier edits. So I'm like, all right, I need to buy a camera. So I started diving into YouTube a little bit more, learning different things about cameras, lenses, a little bit of lighting. I think that's also when I kind of came across Sam Colder and Peter McKinnon, kind of like you did. So dove into that. I bought my first real camera in 2019. Actually, backtracking a little bit, the next camera I had in between that was like a Canon camcorder. My dad just bought it for us when we were shooting our soccer videos. He's like, you guys need something a little extra. So I was working with the camcorder for a little bit, but realized I needed something kind of like DSLR style. I was obsessed with the blurry background. That's what got me into it, I guess. I couldn't do that with the camcorder. So I was like, all right, I need to upgrade this setup a little bit. Bought my first real mirrorless camera setup in 2019. It was the Sony A6400. And used that for a long time. And I feel like I very quickly kind of got the hang of that and really quickly started learning some things beyond just the camera basics, like shooting in log and things like that, which might not mean anything to some of you non-creative people out there, but was kind of taking some steps pretty quickly with that. So I was really just enjoying my time with a camera. Fast forward to, I think it was early 2020, which is where we met in the grocery store. So yeah, Nick's last day, we were introduced to each other. I thought this kid hated me. He always wore a beanie to work. And I was like, oh, he's just some like, he's just some like mean hipster kid who doesn't want to talk to anybody. So
not completely inaccurate.
So I was just like, I never went up to him, never wanted to say anything because I figured he didn't want to say anything to me. So then our manager introduced us to each other. He's like, oh, Sam, Nick also does some video stuff. And I know you guys are both, you're going to URI next year for film media. And, he's just coming out of the program. So you guys should definitely link up. And like in my head, I'm like, yeah, sure. So many people have said like they do video. And I'm like, I'm sure they do. But
right.
There's some people who it's just like, they do a different thing than what we do. So I'm like, yeah, no way. But I'm like, yeah, hi, nice to meet you. And obviously he said, Nick said he had to go. So he was rushing out the door anyway, but, we didn't really say anything for a few months. As Nick said, we connected later on Instagram, and I checked out his page. I'm like, oh, you know what? He's actually not too bad. So And I think he probably had a similar reaction to my page and the stuff I was posting. At this point, I had kind of like branched out from some of the soccer specific stuff. I was still doing it, but I started also just kind of like taking photos of everything on the side. I was doing a lot of kind of, I guess you could call it travel photography content. I was kind of doing that in and around Rhode Island, because that's where I grew up. Lots of like coastal pictures, coastal vibes, that sort of thing. And then Nick DM'd me one day. He's like, "Hey, I have this idea. Do you know who Sam Colder is?" I'm like, "Of course I know who Sam Colder is." He's like, "I want to make a video like him." So I'm like, okay, he's like way better than anything I can do right now, but we'll give it a shot. And so he came to me with that 3-day travel video project. That was the first time we met and talked to each other in person. And I think
honestly,
we kind of
like for being the first thing we ever did, like the pre-production wasn't bad. Like I feel like I did a lot of pre-production and like kind of impressed for the first time ever doing something like that.
I'm sure you only asked me to tag along because I knew more about Rhode Island, having grown up in the area. And you were kind of like, yeah, he knows how to use a camera, but I kind of just need him to lead me around.
I mean, yeah, I just needed a second set of hands, honestly, like to film me doing things. So yeah, pretty much. I didn't know anyone else. So you were the only option.
The idea too was that we were going to record like a BTS video, the whole thing. And I don't think that ever saw the light of day. Did it? I don't think it did.
I don't even remember doing that.
That was the main reason you wanted me there.
Note. Oh, okay, yeah. Because a side note, I forgot to mention when you were talking about your soccer YouTube stuff, I did YouTube for a long time. Also, I totally like glazed over that. I would call myself just a YouTuber. I was very consistent. I vlogged for like 4 years. So yeah, I was a YouTuber as well. Quick side note there.
Yeah. YouTube was a huge part of our early careers, not only for the learning process that we had, like actually creating content for YouTube, but we call it YouTube University. Essentially, the both of us agree that we did not learn crap in film school. Basically,
Complete waste of time.
Everything we taught ourselves and that we know currently about video and film production came from YouTube, because it's like a completely different style of work. I feel like it's the stuff that we do now.
Our goal is never to go to Hollywood.
Right. Film school prepares you for Hollywood, television, broadcast, that sort of thing. And it's not what we did. And unfortunately, I kind of realized that, like, I realized that like my freshman year of like going to school at URI. And at that time I thought it was a little too late, but hindsight, I should have just dropped out. It was kind of like the sunk cost fallacy at that point. I'm like, oh, I'm at college, I just need to get a degree, that sort of thing. So
I definitely like hinted at the time, like you should think about dropping out.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't think too much of it until later on. But basically, so freshman year of college, once I got in there, we had shot the Rhode Island travel video over the summer. We were super pumped with how it came out. Loved a lot of the footage we shot. And so Nick was going into his senior year at URI, and I was going into my freshman year. And this was 2020. So it was the previous spring semester was like the crazy COVID semester, I think. Yeah.
Right.
I basically I had graduated high school in the spring, and we had like basically finished classes virtually, and it was like a totally weird experience. So then I was going into college with a lot of our classes being virtual, a lot of social distancing. I was like, oh, I'll live on campus, but it was a very weird experience from that side of things. Like there was basically just nobody around. So yeah, like that's a whole other thing. But safe to say my first semester of college wasn't great, but what me and Nick kind of kept doing, we kept making YouTube videos together. And I think that was our first experience of like working together in a way. We started out
Yeah.
that fall semester into the winter. I remember I would always go over to his off-campus house, and we called them our quote production days, where I would just go over there. We would record a bunch of YouTube videos. Sometimes we went out to
and then we'd always get pizza.
Yeah, we always got pizza. Kingston Pizza. Shout out Kingston Pizza. What was it? We always got the same one. It was broccoli and onion.
Chicken,
right?
yeah, broccoli and onion, yeah.
Absolute classic. Oh God. It's what? It's 9 or no, it's 10. I already ate breakfast, but I'm hungry again. So maybe I'll order a pizza for lunch. No, I'm actually making pizza tomorrow night, but side note. Yeah, we kind of jived through those production days. We realized we like worked really well together. I believe at this point you were still figuring out what you wanted to do after college, right? So I'm gonna kind of hand it back off to you because I wanna touch on like what happened from that point. You were very much in the entrepreneurial spirit, and you wanted to kind of like start a production company, right? Like, tell me about
I knew what I wanted.
The very first one you started, not the second one, the very first one.
I wasn't sure if I was gonna say it or not, but yeah.
We're talking about it. We're telling everything today.
All right. So there was another person. I won't say their name for that privacy reasons, but yeah, before Sam, this is while Sam and I were, making YouTube videos at my house. There was someone else that I was going to make a production company with, and we got. I don't even know. We like barely even started. I don't even think we actually formed an LLC. Like we didn't even get that far.
Exactly.
It was really just the thought, and the thought never evolved into like we never executed on anything.
You had a logo. You had a logo, and I shot your.
We had a
photos.
name and a logo. Yeah. Well, yeah, we got branding photos, and pretty much after all that, I knew it was going to be a mistake, so I pretty much ended that before it started, and turned to Sam and was like, do you want to start a production company? Because I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted to start a video production company, but being young, I didn't necessarily want to do it by myself. I just wanted someone to just kind of bear that load with. So yeah, I pretty much was like, how about you? Do you want to do it?
And I was like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, working with you on the YouTube stuff, I knew at least you could do video in the capacity I was looking for. So I was like, yeah. So pretty much then we started the company.
Yeah, at that point though, had you gotten any paid gigs prior to that? Because I think things I had done, I had a couple like local people like over that previous summer. I had a couple like local people, just people I knew that knew I had a camera, basically just paying me pennies. So like I had a couple quote paid gigs, but I didn't really think anything of it at that point. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but yeah. Had you done anything prior to that? I can't remember, honestly.
Well, this is actually a good way to bring it back to weddings, but yes, I did one music video for someone I knew probably in 2020-ish. Horrible. So horrible. But they liked it.
He never showed it to me. That's how embarrassed he was.
Literally, like the audio and visuals wasn't even synced properly. It was so bad. But anyway, so I did that. I think that was the only commercial video I'd ever shot prior to this for money. But I've been shooting weddings I was second shooting weddings at the time since 2019. So I had done those before, and that was pretty much my only experience with like shooting video for money. But I knew like what to do and like what types of videos I wanted to do, like the brand type videos, like the classic interviewing people, filming B-roll and overlaying it. Like I knew that was the style like that was going to work.
Yeah, like corporate stuff.
At least from a business structure wise, that was like the easiest way to make money. So I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But no, I hadn't done it before. And then, you and I started that, and pretty much got 2 jobs right off the bat. It was your old high school, and we just shot
Gosh, yeah.
some basic little thing. And then we shot, my roommate, he worked at a restaurant, so they let us shoot a video for that restaurant. And those were like instant jobs. So we were like, okay, great. And then nothing happened for a long time because right before I graduated college, I broke my ankle. And then basically the entire summer,
Tell them how
right
you
after
did it.
college.
Tell them how silly you were.
So we were about to start a hike, and it was to this gorge called the Chesterfield Gorge. I will never go back there ever again.
Scarred for
And
life.
I didn't even see it. Like, we were literally like 30 paces from the car, basically. We had like just started, and it was like a downhill thing to this gorge. And I had my camera in my hand, and I was filming my friend in front of me. And then I like looked down at my screen, and I was like, okay, great. I closed my camera screen, turned my camera off, but I was still like kind of looking down at for like a split second as I was like turning my camera off. And in that moment, my right foot kind of got wedged in between these rocks, and it just got stuck, and I couldn't move it. So I was going downhill, my foot got wedged, and I was falling forward. And there was this like giant, it was kind of a turn in the path. There was a giant boulder like right in front of me. So I was like, it was all happening in slow motion. Just like they say, it actually did. So in my head, I was like, all right, there are 2 options here. I could either fall forward and smash my face into this giant boulder, or I can twist my body, save the face, and land awkwardly. So I opted for that option. And so I didn't hit my face. I was like, oh, nice. But I twisted, and as I fell, I heard a crack or a pop or something. So I was like, well, that's not good. And so I instantly knew I did something to my ankle. And priorities, because I was a YouTuber at the time, I handed my camera to my friend. I was like, film this.
Did you, is this video still public somewhere? Because I remember watching it. I was like, this is hilarious.
Think it is. Literally, as soon as I fell,
So
and as
good.
soon as my friend knew that I was on the ground, she came back, and I didn't even say like what happened. I literally, the first thing I said was, film this. Like,
Film
here, take this.
True
hit record.
content creator.
It was so stupid, but yeah, that's like the true content creator YouTuber mindset. Like, that was the priority for me. I was like, this needs to be captured.
I thought it was like such a silly scenario to be in, because literally in the summer before, when we had filmed the Rhode Island travel video, this is gonna like such a deep memory for you. I don't even know if you remember this, but I had a similar situation where I was standing on top of a wet rock. I looked down at my camera
Didn't
screen,
you like break your camera lens?
and I slipped and
Screen?
I broke my LCD screen. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure I said something to you along the lines of like, note to self, like, don't look at your camera in the woods or something like that. And what did you do? You looked at your camera in the woods and snapped your ankle.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
yeah, from there,
that was a tangent.
we basically didn't do any work because I literally couldn't walk. And this is actually your first introduction to weddings, so nice segue here, because I was supposed to second shoot more weddings for our friend Alex, who was a wedding videographer as well.
We'll get him on at some point. I feel like he's been on all of your podcasts, but we need to get him on this one too. He always has good perspectives.
So I was, his go-to second shooter, and we had maybe 2 or 3 lined up for the summer. And for like the first 2, I obviously couldn't go. So Sam tagged in, and those were his first experience shooting weddings. Also, as second shooters, I think it's definitely better to have your first experience be like a second shooting experience.
Oh my gosh,
and
do not be a
like,
first shooter for your first ever wedding. Unless it's free. Unless you're shooting a wedding for free.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but I still recommend going the second shooter route, even before you shoot a free wedding at first, because you get to see and learn from somebody who has experience. And literally after the first wedding, I had watched like a video course on how to film weddings prior to that. Literally after the first wedding, I'm like, all right, I got this. Like, I can make this work.
In reality, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like,
some people will try to
just to capture the day. It's not hard. It's like
the hard
same
part
thing
comes from
every
like
single
the
time.
storytelling and all of the other extra creative things that we do I guess, behind the scenes.
Right.
That's the hard part, and the business side
Yeah.
of things. Like the actual physical filming of it isn't too difficult. Besides, I would say there's a physical aspect to it. You need to be in wedding shape to actually succeed at wedding filmmaking. But like, yeah, the actual doing of it, it's almost like I don't want to call it a formula, but it's kind of a formula.
Kind of is.
There's certain things that you can apply to every single wedding, and the best parts of it come from the extra creative things that you do on the wedding day. But that's kind of how we got started into weddings. Yeah, after that summer of your broken ankle, we quickly took off with commercial stuff.
Commercial stuff, yeah.
We had like a 3-day span where we were all across New England. We were in Rhode Island one day, Cape Cod the next, and New Hampshire the day after that. Like, it was insane.
And then we got our first long-term contract, like instantly, like a 12-month contract with a company. Like, so like we were ecstatic in the very beginning because we were like, dang, we had this 12-month contract. We made it like already. Like we're good.
We made it. Oh boy.
And
we had so much to learn from that point.
Yeah, we did not make it.
We did not make it. If you ever say to yourself, you've made it, you're wrong.
You didn't make it.
You didn't.
Yeah. So
yeah,
we pretty much, I think from there, we instantly made this branch of weddings stuff and like started shooting weddings full like 2021, like spring. I don't know. 2022 was the first.
Yeah, 2021 was when we started our company together, and then the spring of 2022, having not shot any weddings under our brand, we basically took a lot of
wait, so we talked about this off of mic, but I still don't fully know how this happened. Like, we had zero things to show. Zero. All we did was second shoot. Didn't use those as like portfolio pieces because obviously they weren't ours. Yet somehow, some way, in our first year of attempting to book weddings, we booked what, like 9 or like 10, something like that.
We booked 10 in our first year, but I think here's what happened. I don't remember it like super clearly, but a lot of it was kind of lucky. I think we knew we wanted to do weddings, but we're like, we don't have anything to show for it. So a few things happened. We did use some of the videos that we've second shot, and we credited our friend Alex. We're like, hey,
we're like, we could shoot something like this.
Yeah, we made like a little weddings landing page on our website with some of those things, some kind of sample packages on there, just based on what we had seen other people doing.
I think we started at like 2,000 or like 2,200 or something.
Yeah, from 0 to 2,000 quickly. A lot of people start at like $500 per wedding, and
the thing is, we
jumped right into it.
The entire time, both commercial and wedding stuff, like from a like videographer, cinematographer, like skill set point of view, like we knew we were better than the average person who has at least been like learning for the same amount of time as us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like,
I think a lot of things happened for us quickly.
For, like it was YouTube, honestly. Like the fact that we learned
University.
So quickly.
Basically, we took stuff we saw
and
applied it like super quickly, and we were able to. I think we just learned very fast, and kind of like a lot of the things that we've done throughout our entire videography careers thus far, things just happened very fast for us.
So we were fine starting at 2,000 and not like 500 because we knew our skill level was good enough. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and I think Alex kind of helped us with some referrals because he capped out at a certain amount of weddings per year, and he's like, hey, I can't really take on these. So he sent us a few off the bat, and we kind of ended up converting all of those couples pretty quickly. I had a friend, she was kind of like the local senior portrait photographer in my hometown. And
Right.
she's like honestly more one of my mom's friends. She's much older than us, but she had been doing weddings and senior portraits and all that stuff for a long time. And once she figured out that like we were doing this stuff too, she referred a couple to us as well. And having those relationships early on was like, honestly, if we didn't have any form of relationships, we probably wouldn't even be here today. We wouldn't be recording this podcast right now. So we kind of built our first year of business off referrals. A few of them were also kind of like last minute bookings that, you know, they probably had other videographers in mind that didn't work out. We were new at the time, eager to get some things under our belt, and we shot a bunch of weddings that first year, and we were very quickly on our way. We proved our skills quickly. Started using those as portfolio pieces to get the ball rolling, and then I want to say towards the end of 2022, we hadn't booked too many for the following year, but we were kind of like starting to really branch the wedding business out as kind of like a side brand. So we had everything under one umbrella for a long time, and then we're like, all right, this is like completely different from a lot of the stuff we do, so we need to make this separate.
So technically, SeaMount Weddings has only existed for like barely 2 years, but like I said, I've shot weddings since 2019. You started in like 2021, I think.
Yeah, you've been shooting for 5 years. I've been shooting for 3.5, 4 years.
So yeah, we have a combined like nearly a decade of wedding filming experience.
Feels like longer.
I mean, yeah, we're as young as the company might be. We're definitely like fairly experienced and like well versed in the wedding filmmaking industry, which is why we are talking today, because we feel like we know enough to have a podcast.
We do know enough to have a podcast. And I think a lot of people don't know enough to have a podcast. We're just another one of those like 20-somethings pair of dudes with some podcast microphones and a camera setup. We're yet another one of those. We're living up to the stereotype. But you know what? We like it. We like making podcasts. We like talking about what we do. And we do actually have some valuable insight to share. So yeah, that is why we are doing this today. Little bit of kind of like what happened after that first year of weddings. We were continuing some of the commercial side of things, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. We started off 2023 doing some stuff, and then Nick approached me. I'll let you give this this part of the story, but this is always like, some people they can't wrap their heads around this, but I think it's honestly way easier to explain. Like some people don't understand, but tell them what happened.
Wait, I'm curious. What do you mean people don't understand?
Yeah, so some people don't realize how
we understand why.
They don't understand how we can make our wedding business work with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was actually, we were literally on a wedding shoot. It was our first like destination wedding. So we were in Dallas, and pretty much the week leading up, maybe like, it was probably longer. It was like maybe the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks leading up to this. Like I was having these thoughts of potentially wanting to leave SeaMount Media to start like just to be by myself. And then obviously like we were on this,
which I could tell,
multi-day trip, and I was like, this is not the time to do it. But I clearly wasn't like hiding the feelings well, because literally I remember in the car we were driving in Dallas, and you asked like, are you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm just like thinking about the wedding, like just trying to get in the zone. But in reality, I was like, yeah, thinking about this. I was like, should I tell her? You
normally have a resting like stone cold face, but this is something else.
I have a resting bitch face, but this was like the next level.
You're like, no, I'm just tired, dude. Liar. No, I'm kidding.
Actually, I don't know if you remember this. So when we were in the hotel, I like took a phone call with one of our friends, and remember I like left the room to like have a long call, and
I have
basically
no
on that phone call
of that, but
oh, okay. I was literally in the hotel lobby talking about it, like, oh, what should I do? Blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, not the time. definitely don't do it here.
No.
So then it was probably like, I don't know, a week or so later when we were back home, and I was like, yeah, I basically explained everything, and that I just wanted to go on my own. But so yes, we eventually did separate SeaMount Media, and now I run my own commercial production company called Ascend Studios. But I knew that I still wanted to do weddings. Sam, you still wanted to do weddings.
Yep.
And I didn't want to do weddings alone. We already had like the wedding workflow kind of dialed at that point, and I had no issues with that, like continuing as long as you were okay with it. So we pretty much were like, yeah, we're good just keeping the wedding business going because we both still enjoy weddings and are fine shooting them together. So we have our own commercial companies, but then we still continue to team up as we are now for the wedding stuff.
I think that's the part that a lot of people don't understand. They can't grasp when we like kind of tell them that story, is because it traditionally in a lot of other
odd
industries. Yeah, I think it's like a little weird, but like in other industries, if you like leave and start a new business, a new venture, you're kind of like instantly in competition with that other party who was like your former business partner. And then there's like always this weird like they betrayed you, and like they're now your competition, they're your enemy. And so some people can't wrap their heads around, because what I love about the modern creative community is that it is community over competition. And essentially we feed off of each other's businesses all the time. I still shoot for Nick for commercial stuff all the time. He has me help out on shoots and vice versa. And then on the side, we do weddings. So it's all very collaborative. And honestly, we're friends first before anything else. That was one thing we talked about. Like there was never any bad blood or anything like that. And some people just can't understand that. But that's my favorite thing about the creative community. I guess. Yeah, is that you can kind of go in different directions. You can do things for yourself. You can be independent, but you can rely on other people in your network to, lend a helping hand, or you can go to them for advice, things like that. So I think it's a really cool thing that we have going. And little word of advice for people who may be in creative business or just any small business owners in general. If you do have a business partner or multiple business partners, if you want to kind of like not have the possibility of somebody like branching off, one thing you can immediately do is delegate certain tasks to like form certain roles for each person. Basically, we were doing 50% of everything.
Yeah. That was the reason one of the main reasons it probably didn't work is that we were like the same person in terms of skill sets. Like the best partnerships, especially with like just two people, work when each person brings different strengths and can like compensate for the other person's weaknesses. Whereas in our case, we had very similar strengths and very similar weaknesses. So it just didn't work out like that. Yeah.
And I think now with the wedding business, we're doing better at delegating. I think we also probably need to do a little bit more of that now, but like I handle a lot of the financial stuff and things like that. And we're doing better with it now. We're always constantly learning, but that's just a little word of advice for anybody who is in business with another person. But yeah, we're going on we're about to wrap up our third year of SeaMount weddings.
Going on our filming this, we have 2 left for this year for 2024. Just
hallelujah! It has been a long season.
Okay, because let's be real. Like it started off fine, and then it low key just kind of tailed off at the end here. Like, meh.
Yeah, I mean, there's been things out of our control that we haven't been able to really, been able to control. But yeah, that's what happens in the wedding industry. And I think when people get towards the tail end of busy season, like busy season for us is like, I would say August is kind of like the beginning of busy season in New England, and then it kind of goes into like late October.
I'd
It kind
say,
of
like,
fizzles out after that
between,
because then it gets
like,
too cold.
yeah,
But
July to October in the Northeast for us is like peak
Yeah.
wedding season.
So there's just been a lot happening. Obviously, people are always stressed on their wedding day, and any creative can vouch for us. When you get towards the end of busy season for weddings, you just kind of want to curl up in a ball and die. So
Die. Literally just die.
But the
So
hot take, like, other vendors at the end of busy season probably don't have it as hard as videographers because we have so much post-production to do. It is absurd. Like a lot of
we definitely
florist
have the
planners-
most work like after the day of than any other vendor. Like photographers, yeah, they have to edit too, but they can edit way faster than we can.
Yeah. And I think photographers, planners, florists, DJs, bands, like literally any other wedding vendor, a lot of their work is concentrated in kind of like the pre-wedding phase. And I don't envy that at all. Like we obviously do a lot of pre-planning. We talk to our couples, we go through timelines, we make sure we have a full understanding of the day before we shoot it. But I feel like for other vendors, there's a lot more that goes into it up front. And then for us, most of our work is on the back end. I would say,
Correct.
Would you say 70% of our work is on the back end, or would you say 60%? Probably somewhere in between that.
Probably upwards of 70 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It gets tough towards the end of busy season. So you're just sitting in front of your computer a lot, and it gets rough. But we love what we do. We're good at what we do.
And that all being said, we are currently booking now for 2025. So anyone listening, if you're getting married in 2025, feel free to book us. The link to our website will be in the show notes.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing too. We want this to be a space for other wedding vendors to listen to us. We always have lots of conversations. Like the first thing that comes to mind is the Vendor Table podcast. Are we ripping them off? A little bit. Are we ripping off the kitchen from Runaway Vows? A little bit, but all things creative, come from a source. Nothing is original. But yeah, we want this to be a safe space to discuss topics surrounding weddings, whether it's wedding vendor related or whether it's wedding planning related for prospective wedding couples. Like, you guys might find a lot of this stuff interesting as well. Even if you just stick around for us to just talk about our lives and what goes on behind the scenes, that's cool too. We just want this to be an enjoyable space and conversation for anybody to listen to during your commute, during your wedding planning, whatever you want to do. So with that being said, if you have any topic suggestions that you want to hear us talk about, send us a DM on Instagram. Can people leave comments on Spotify? I have no idea how it works. You're the
they can.
Okay, yeah.
They
Leave a
actually can,
comment
yeah.
on Spotify. Leave a review, right? You can review it.
Yes. Easy.
Leave a 5-star
Literally 2
review.
seconds. 5-star review.
Even if you hate it, leave a 5-star review. Do not leave us a 1-star review. So yeah, review us on Spotify. You're gonna want to subscribe to us on YouTube. It's we haven't made it yet, but I think it's gonna be SeaMount Weddings.
Haven't made anything as of this recording, but I promise once it's live, everything we're saying is going to be true.
Yeah. So, and then also follow us on Instagram. It's at SeaMount Weddings. I think we're on Facebook, but Instagram's our main source of social media. And something else we'll do too is we're going to leave another link in the show notes and YouTube description, wherever you're watching or listening to this. We're going to leave a link for you to submit your wedding day stories, whether it's some horror story, it's kind of like a experience with another vendor. We're going to leave a bunch of different categories there for you guys to kind of like submit your stories so we can talk about them on the podcast and provide our insight on them. And then, yeah, also if you have any other ideas for episodes, things you want to hear us talk about, that's probably a space where you can leave it as well, or you can just shoot us a DM on Instagram. But that pretty much concludes it for our very first episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. So yeah, follow us on all socials, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out.
See ya.